Welcome to the My Friend the Friar podcast, and thanks for listening. If you like My Friend the Friar and want to support us, please consider subscribing or following us if you haven't already done so. And if you found us on YouTube, then don't forget to click the notification bell when you subscribe so you'll be notified of new episodes when they release. Thanks again, and God bless. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me and my friend the Friar, Father Stephen Sanchez, a Discalced Carmelite priest. Good, icy afternoon, Father.
Good afternoon. Cold afternoon.
It is very cold. It's 24.
It's 20 here, so yeah.
Is it? Well, if it makes you feel any better, I have a friend who he's been my friend since kindergarten. Shout out to Jeff Milam. But anyway, today's his birthday, and turns the big 4-3 today. But anyway, yeah, happy birthday. I messaged him this morning, just, happy birthday and stuff. And he goes, "Oh man, thanks. It's very kind." He goes, "It's -8 here in Chicago." And so he had woken up and his wife had made a lovely fire in the living room and stuff like that. And so I guess it could be worse. Could be really, really, really cold.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm on decaf coffee, but it's warm, and that's all that matters. But your coffee is not decaf. You drink non-decaf coffee all the way till midnight.
Yeah. To treat myself, I put a big tablespoon of Abuelita Mexican chocolate in it just to make it special.
Yeah. It's a cafe mocha.
There you go.
Or cafe mocha. I don't know. Whatever. All right. Brother Lawrence. Bra Lawrence. Or bruh. Bruh. How do the kids say it? Bruh. Bruh Lawrence today. So we've been wanting to talk about Brother Lawrence for a while, which I'm excited. I got the little...
wanting to talk about Brother Lawrence for a while.
Yes. Sorry. I have. Because what's funny is I somehow didn't even know who the dude was. And then I stumbled across the little book that's like the collection of his letters and stuff like that, the Practicing the Presence of God, right? And I was like, oh, that's so neat. And it's like $2.37. So I bought a little pocket version, and I was going on a walk with Betty and we were talking about it. And she was like, "Wait, what? I just bought it too." And we literally bought it at the same time, completely separated, not talking about it together, just randomly kind of bought it. But anyway, it's a great little book. I don't know, no spoilers, my personal opinion. I can kind of see why he's probably not sainted, only because you've got such Carmelite giants. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a very humble thing, his writings. So, but I don't know. What do you, when you think about Brother Lawrence, what do you think of first? What strikes you first? Not just even necessarily what he taught or what he wrote about, but the person, who he was.
The first thing, whenever anybody mentions him, I'm always, it always registers one surprise that anybody would mention him, because hardly anybody knows who he is. So first, I'm surprised that somebody would even know who he is. Secondly, I was very surprised during my own formation to find out that he's very, very popular amongst Protestant circles as well. A lot of Protestants know him. That surprised me too.
I think that's how I stumbled across him, was listening to some Protestant guy talking about him.
Yeah. And probably thirdly is, again, the person. Then when it comes to the person, a very, very humble lay brother who lots of people sought out for spiritual advice, for spiritual direction. So
Yeah. He's not a priest.
no,
He's not a bishop. He's not a nut. He's just a lay brother.
yeah,
The kitchen cook.
yes, but it was a large monastery, so he was very busy.
Yeah. What do you think? I don't know. Why do you think God chooses people, right? It's kind of funny. Why do you think God chose the guy in the kitchen to kind of, I don't know, touch in such a way where he felt like called to write these kinds of things down and be influential?
Well, I think probably the way that he gave himself to God. I think he gave himself to God before he got to the kitchen. So I think it's just where he wound up really didn't matter to him. I mean, that's how surrendered he was to God, right? In his relationship with God, it didn't matter where he was. It was he had an understanding of his own relationship to God. So where he would find himself, he was going to be himself. So I think it's a very beautiful life. I mean, he was a simple brother as well. So, but I think it's not unusual for that to happen. I mean, when Our Lady appeared to Bernadette, very simple girl. When Our Lady appeared to Juan Diego, very simple man. When our Lord appeared to Anne of St. Bartholomew, a very simple shepherdess. So yeah, there's something there. There's something. In fact, I was just talking to Father Paul Bechter. I was just talking to Father Paul the other day. We were talking about this on our trip down to Victoria, how this is so very much part of God's plan, to choose the humble, to choose Israel, the smallest of all. I don't even, you can't even call it a nation back then. It was just the smallest of a tribe, right? It was the most unknown tribe. So there's something there about God always choosing the most humble to let his power shine through.
Speaking of Israel,
Yeah.
quick squirrel kind of moment. I was watching this documentary on I can't remember if it was it had to have been about Israel, but I don't remember the exact topic. But there was this. It was either an obelisk from Egypt or some kind of rock monumental kind of thing like Egypt does. But it was listing all the people. Excuse me. It was listing all these people or groups, I guess, that they had gone to war with, or I don't know, something like that. You know how like kings would write down all their triumphs and stuff. So it could have been something like that. But anyway, what was interesting is that it's listing all these nations, these kingdoms and their kings and stuff like that. But then it gets to Israel and it lists them as a people instead. So it was very interesting how even they recognize that they don't have a king. They're not this great nation or something like that. They're just a people. Right. So anyway, scroll.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Brother Lawrence, I don't know. Teach us about him, right? Like I think like one of the quotes that he said that really kind of stands out to me. So I really kind of want to get some history, some like knowledge about him as a person for me. But he said, like, the time of business does not with me differ from the time of prayer. And this is the way he just like incorporated being with God into every moment of every day. So teach us about this guy.
Yeah. He that's sort of a summation of his attitude in his relationship with God. The work that everybody people. There you go. Not enough coffee yet. The work that everyone knows is entitled "The Practice of the Presence of God," and he speaks about this ability to be able to keep God present throughout the day. Right? To be we would say mindfulness, a mindfulness of God throughout the day. So a little bit about Brother Lawrence. First, I want to say that the Carmelites came to France let me see, the Carmelites received their rule around 1207. They're made legal or recognized like in 1215. Then we have the Fourth Lateran Council. And so the order had to slowly becomes a mendicant order over time. They arrive in Paris around I want to say the middle of the century. It's not 1250, a little bit earlier than 1250, but around there, they get to Paris and establish a house. Then we have different, as usual, we have wars and kingdoms and kings and all this other stuff goes on, affecting everything.
And no separation of church and state.
Yeah, there's no separation of church and state yet. And then after the Protestant Revolution or revolt, then we have kings that are Protestant versus kings that are Catholic versus people that don't want a Catholic king or don't want a Protestant king. And anyway, all that happens. Then we have the reform of Teresa and John in the 16th century Spain. So the Theresian Carmel, or the Discalced Carmelite order, the nuns arrived first in Paris, or brought to Paris by Henry IV, who was a Protestant king, then became a Catholic king, not because he believed, but because he wanted the throne. In fact, his famous quote is, "Paris is worth a mass." So he'd be willing to be a Catholic just to be able to get on the throne. So that's how convicted he was about the faith. But anyway,
maybe there's something there we can talk about in another episode.
Yeah, write that down. Make a note on the side somewhere. And then, so the nuns come first, and the friars come later, and they establish a house in Paris. It's a very big house, and so this is eventually who Lawrence will come to know. But first, a little bit about Brother Lawrence. He was born in 1614, and he was born Nicholas Herman, and he was baptized in the village of Hermenil, Lorraine, France. And it was, at that time in history, it was not necessarily what we call the Kingdom of France. It was part of the Holy Roman Empire. It was the Grand Duchy, the Grand Duchy under the Holy Roman Empire, and was ruled by the Dukes of the House of Lorraine. And at the time that Nicholas Herman is born, it's ruled by Duke Henry II of Lorraine. And so this territory is between the Holy Roman Empire and what was understood back then as the Kingdom of France. France took it over this territory in 1766. Because he lived in such a rural area, we really don't know very much about his early life. There's no records in terms of education or anything like that. We really don't know anything about his early life. All we do know is that he apparently was raised in a very religious environment. And then we're not sure exactly how his catechism or how he was catechized and how he learned the faith. But he does talk about, something happening to him when he was 18, is in 1632. In some winter, he was looking out and he sees this tree. And this tree is, obviously completely bare. It's the winter. And he starts thinking about the fact that it's going to come to life again in the spring. And all of a sudden, as he reflects on this, something moves him greatly in terms of he experiences in a very deep way God's presence and God's providence, that God as the source of life. And so how God is continually revealing himself in the world. And he sees this revelation in this tree that is in deep sleep that will wake up. And so this is a huge thing for him, is a very big religious awakening, we would say, or a consideration or even contemplation already, that he sees this, and this is something that guides him for the rest of his life. So this is something that stays with him. He was only 18. So then, as I said before, where he was born is on the border between the French monarchy and the Holy Roman Empire. So this area, Lorraine, was involved in the 30 Years' War from 1618 to 1648. And there were the estimates as to people that died from the 30 Years' War ranges from 4.5 million to 8 million soldiers and civilians that died from not just the battle, but the famine and the diseases that come from that war. So that's a lot of people, right?
It's a lot.
It's a lot of people. So this war, this 30 Years' War, was centered around the Catholic monarchs and the Protestant monarchs and these dynastic struggles for these thrones. So Nicholas joins, like a good patriot, joins the army of the Grand Duchy, the Grand Duchy, and this led to a dark period of his life. And he doesn't really tell us anything about it, except that all he says is that he's very, very sorrowful over this period of his life. He expresses great regret over the sins he's committed. So we don't know what, I don't know if it's people that he killed or things that he saw or things that he did, or he found himself, maybe engaging that beastly part of himself to survive. We're not sure. We do know that he was wounded in 1635 in a battle over Rambervillers, which the Duke was trying to recover, again, struggling for castles and territory. So he was brought back to his native village to recover.
Yeah. And I think the injury, whatever injury he suffered, made his later duties as like a cook and stuff really difficult for him.
Yes.
And so, he was just like, and I'm sure lots of people have been in this boat where it's like, I can't escape my past. Like, right. I'm like, my injury, I can't get over my injury. I can't get over the things I've done. Like, it's just a constant reminders kind of thing. And like he doesn't, I remember when I was reading the little book, that stood out to me too. Like he never says like what it was, but you can tell it really bothered him.
Yeah. It was a continual reminder of whatever it was.
Yeah.
So when he's recovering back at home out in the country, he meets some hermit. And again, we're not sure about the dates and all the data that we would want to know, all the facts.
The details, yeah.
So he meets some hermit, and it inspires Nicholas to try to live like a hermit, but it's not possible for him. Again, we're not told why. He just says it's not something that he can do. And so he continues to desire to live a more, I was going to say Christian life, well, Catholic life. That's all there was, right? So this is what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
And we're not told why, but he moves to Paris. I don't know if it's for him, family matters or health matters or whatever, but he winds up moving to Paris. And maybe it might be looking for work. So he goes to Paris and he works for a very prominent gentleman in Paris. And so he's a servant. But again, he didn't really care for this. It wasn't something that he wanted. It was just something he was using to survive. And it's during his time here in Paris that he encounters the large community of Discalced Carmelite friars at the monastery of St. Joseph. And it had been recently consecrated. It was consecrated in 1625. So then through his contact with the friars there in the Paris monastery, and because of this community, Nicholas then feels attracted to discern with them to live a life with them, and he enters the monastery as a lay brother in 1640 when he's around 26. And he was given the name Lawrence of the Resurrection. He made his solemn vows in 1642. And so back then, lay brothers had no vote in what we call the conventual chapter, that is the meeting of the community that to vote for things to do in the house, or to vote for who's going to be prior, who's, the voting for different offices and stuff, right? So he didn't have a vote or a voice because he was a lay brother. Only the priests or the choir friars had voice. So they didn't participate either in the divine office because most lay brothers didn't know how to read. So, and so what the lay brothers would do, and the lay sisters in the cloister, what they would do is they would pray the rosary. There were so many rosaries for Lauds, so many rosaries for Vespers, so many rosaries for Office of Readings, so many rosaries for Compline, right? That's what the rosary was used for. But the lay brothers were always the backbone of the community. They were the ones that actually, they did all the work. They did all the heavy lifting to maintain the life of the community. So you had them, they were working in the orchards, they're working in the fields, there was somebody that's administrator of the house, you had somebody that's administrator of the kitchen. And then this is what Brother Lawrence did. He was put in charge of the kitchen. And the lay brothers, back then, there was no celebration of masses back then. The brothers also served as acolytes and servers for the priests, because each priest would celebrate their own private mass. That was before concelebration was allowed. So this was basically his life, and this is what he did, and this is what he discerned in his religious life.
Let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you think it is about his life before he entered Carmel that's important, like, to shaping his spirituality? Because, of course, we don't have lots of details. Like, but what do you think it was?
I think there is a deep desire to, and the religious figures will express this in different ways. There's a deep desire to know the truth in its fullness, which is the same thing as looking for God, right? So God is all truth, all beauty, all perfection. Whatever it was that he experienced, that first initial religious awakening, I think that never really let go of him. And I think he continuously felt, as Augustine would say, restless. His heart was restless. And so he was just kept looking and searching for this relationship with God, this deeper relationship, this hunger and thirst that he knew that only the infinite could provide for him. So I think that is what really what drove him. I think continuously listening to that call, that itch, that thirst, that hunger, and not getting confused and trying to fill it with finite temporal things, but to know that it was a call to something transcendent. I think that really is what drove him.
Yeah. I mean, because once upon a time, you were a man outside of Carmel, right? And
how people forget that I wasn't born in a monastery.
Yeah. And you got sucked in. Do you have a tree moment? Like where because I know you. I know there's things that you aspired to in life before, but like, was there any very specific moment that you can think of where you're just like,
yeah, I mean, I would rather not talk about them, but yeah, there are moments in my life that I would say significant religious moments, going way back into my childhood. That's sort of like, there's an attraction, there's something there, there's a, I would say, like an intuition towards something, a transcendent an awareness that there is something greater, something beyond um, the everyday life or the everyday experience, and to sort of be aware of that and want that and desire that and try to move towards that. So yeah, I think yeah.
Yeah. Kind of like a seed, I guess. I like you were saying, is this thing that kind of grabs hold of you and doesn't let go. Um, it's like it's. I understand what you're saying, because I would even say, like, for myself growing up when I was very young, I remember watching the priest going, "That would be cool. I could be a priest or something." You know,
Yeah.
like there's something, an attraction,
Yeah.
and then that attraction kind of colors or flavors all of your life experiences. And so whenever you experience these things that are so grandiose and huge and all consuming, eventually you move past them and you go, oh, well, it wasn't as big as I thought it was.
Right.
Right. For like a lot of people, it's like high school sports and stuff like that. Right. And then you get to the next thing and the next thing, and you're always left like that. It's flavoring again, or coloring your experience to where you're just like, there's gotta be something else. Right.
And maybe
And then
the next
eventually,
thing will be it. Yeah.
yeah. And so then eventually you kind of come to this realization of what it is in God that you're longing for, and you're like, and then you're probably scared. You're like, I don't want to do that. Right? So, no, that's interesting. It's good. It's good stuff. All right, so then what happened next?
Okay, so again, a very interesting man. Parts of his life are he's very private about, and other parts he's willing to be more explicit. So he's willing to confess how difficult the transition is for himself. So his religious life was not easy. Again, he had his physical consequences of his injuries, right? That didn't make life easy for himself. Probably was in pain most of the time. But he doesn't explain why he had a hard time with religious life. Probably growing up, entering as an adult man, right? It's kind of hard to sort of submit your will and try to be docile and allow yourself to be formed. So I'm sure he had a hard time with that. But he does share some of his difficulties in a letter to a priest. And so I'm not sure, I don't remember who he wrote this to. But he does say, I will admit that during the first 10 years of his religious life, I suffered a great deal. The apprehensions that I did not belong to God as I wished, my past sins always before my eyes, and the lavish graces God was giving me were the sum and substance of all my woes. So he feels blessed, and he feels guilty that he's blessed.
Yeah.
Right? So that's part of his struggle. So during this period, he continues, during this period, I fell often, but I got up just as quickly. It seemed to me that all creatures, reason, and God himself were against me, and that faith alone was on my side. I was sometimes troubled by thoughts that this was the result of my presumption, in that I pretended to be all at once where others were able to arrive only with difficulty. Other times I thought I was willingly damning myself, that there was no salvation for me. When I accepted the fact that I might spend my life suffering from these troubles and anxieties, which in no way diminished the trust I had in God and served only to increase my faith, I suddenly found myself changed all at once. And my soul, until that time, always in turmoil, experienced a deep inner peace as if it had found its center and place of rest. So I think that's very interesting that he suffers a great deal for 10 years. I mean, he's struggling to maintain himself or to live his religious life or whatever. And yet at the same time, it's interesting the way he separates that, like, but my faith was still strong, right? So he sees this conflict with himself. It made me think of St. Paul, right? Why do I do the things I don't want to do, and I don't do the things I do want to do? So it made me think of that. Like there's this awareness of this conflict between, we would say, his habitual way of life, and the life of grace that he feels called to, or the life of friendship with Christ that he feels called to. So he sees these two opposing forces in his life, but he doesn't despair. In fact, he continuously trusts in his faith in God and God's love for him. And yet it's not until he accepts the fact of his conflict, right, that he comes to peace. I think that is a very, very interesting insight into that struggle. I think everybody struggles with God. Everybody wrestles with God, whether they know it or not. And if you're not wrestling with God, then you need to do some thinking then. So
yeah.
reflection.
Well, and if I think a lot of people wrestle with a lot of people who are mindful of their pasts or their sinful habits or addictions or whatever, and they're wanting to move on from these things. I think a lot of people struggle with kind of like what he's saying. It's like everything is against me. Like, why do I keep doing the things, like you're saying for Paul? Why do I keep doing the things that I don't want to do? Right. And there's another quote that he has where he says, "When I fail in my duty, I readily acknowledge it, saying, I am used to doing so. I shall never do otherwise. And if I'm left to myself,
Right.
and if I fail not, then I give God thanks, acknowledging that it came from Him." Right. And so that kind of thing, that realization of like, well, I need a savior. You know,
Right.
like what would I expect otherwise? I'm not God, so I should be struggling.
Right.
And he kind of accepts it, and it helps him move on.
Yeah, it's part of the nature, right? Kind of accepting the consequences of the fall, and being able to say, okay, so
Yeah, it's not an excuse.
No.
It doesn't mean just keep doing the thing. It's just like every time you find yourself in that moment where you're struggling with this thing again, you're just like, you shouldn't be surprised.
Right. Yeah. So I think he's a great inspiration in terms of really accepting yourself, and by that I mean being apathetic or indifferent about your journey, but like, okay, this is something that a lot of people have a hard time with, and that is like, I need to be healed. Why am I surprised, that I am broken and wounded when I know that I need a redeemer? I need the divine physician, and so I need to just stop acting like I'm okay, and just really ask the Lord. I really need your help. I really need to be healed. I really need this sanation and this blessing from you, and to be okay with that. To be okay that you're, what is it? The recent singer, forget what her name is, and that starts with a D. Is it Demi Lovato? Maybe. It's okay that I'm not okay. Something like that. It's a pop song not too long ago.
I don't know. I've never heard it, but I'll take your word on it.
Okay.
Or
I don't listen to pop music much, but somebody sent it to me. Like, oh yeah, this is, because I'm always telling people, give yourself permission to learn. It's okay that you're not okay. So then somebody said, oh, somebody heard your quote and they made it into a song. So they sent it to me. So
yeah. No, I think this kind of theme in his writings was very insightful for me too. So I think it's definitely one of those things where I think it would do a lot of people a lot of good to get to this point of knowing that recognizing where they need healing, and not beating themselves up about it,
right,
but really inviting God to come heal them. Yeah. All right. So what happens next?
Well,
Because he joins. And then what?
He's there. He's there for 10 years, and then after
Mm-hmm.
10 years, and he comes to this place of peace. His 10-year trial. He comes to this place of self-acceptance and peace, and it's something that he centers himself on, or becomes his center, I should say, and it never leaves him again for the next 30 years. He does share this with a letter that he sends to a religious sister. And he speaks of himself, but he speaks of himself in the third person. Right?
Yeah, that tickled me too.
Yeah,
it's like
kind of
all of his letters to people. He's like, I know this guy.
I know this guy, but he doesn't want to, because he's humble, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, this is what he writes to this religious sister. He is now so accustomed to this divine presence that he receives constant help in every situation. For about 30 years, his soul has been enjoying such great and continual inner consolations that he can hardly contain them. If occasionally he becomes too forgetful of this divine presence, God makes himself known immediately in his soul to call him back to himself. This often happens when he is most engaged in his activities. He responds with complete fidelity to this inner call, either by lifting up his heart toward God, by gently and lovingly turning inward, or by a few words that love formulates during these encounters. These experiences make him so certain that God is always in the depths of his soul that he has no doubts about it, no matter what he may do or what may happen. Right? And so this is something that I think is interesting, because as the steward of the kitchen, and there's a monastery of somewhere between 130 and 150 friars, he had to manage buying the groceries, managing the kitchen, managing the cooks, keeping track of all the money that is spent for what's spent, and keeping records of all this stuff, right? So accounting for every penny, which is, all these things so he has a lot to do. And while he's doing all this, you have people coming to the kitchen to come talk to him. You have bishops coming, you have priests coming, you have people coming to him for spiritual direction in the midst of his duties, right? And he's doing lots and lots and lots. So this, the future biographer of Brother Lawrence was a Reverend Joseph of Beaufort, the Vicar General of Bishop Antoine de Nouaulles, often consulted Brother Lawrence and recalled that this mystic cook told him during his first visit, the first time he goes to visit and asks for spiritual direction, he says, God gives light to those who have an authentic desire to be with him. And that if I had this intention, this Father Joseph, and that I could go ask to see him whenever I wanted without fear of bothering him. And if this was not the intention, then I ought not to come to see him at all. Just don't bother me. If you're not serious about this journey, just don't bother me. So you're very in a very frank, country bumpkin kind of way, like, don't waste my time, dude. So
yeah, it's funny when you were reading the quote just a minute ago about how because he's speaking in the third person, but basically where he's enjoying God's continual company kind of thing. How God makes himself known to him and calls back to him and is talking with him kind of thing. Movie nerd alert. For some reason, it made me think of the Irish guy from Braveheart. Or was it the Irish guy who's talking to, he's like, Stephen's my name. And he's like talking to God the whole time. It's my island. Yeah, he was kind of touched in the head too. So anyway, it randomly popped into my head.
Yeah, that kind of.
Yeah.
frankness, right?
The continual presence.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And you were telling me the other day, Pope Leo's he's thinking about writing a forward for
Yes,
the
they're gonna.
present practicing.
They found some new. I think they found some new letters, some more information about him. They found it in a recent discovery of a transcript, some 16th century or maybe late 15th century transcript. They found this transcript in this collected spiritual writing or spiritual authors, these book, and they go like, oh, there's more. There's more. And so, yeah, Pope Leo is writing an introduction or forward to the new edition of Practice of the Presence of God that's going to be published. And I guess be adding more information or more letters or more something, whatever new information they have. So
That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I want to tell everyone just go pick up the book because, like I said, it's like $2.37. You can probably find the whole thing online for free
Probably now,
if you really
yeah,
wanted
PDFs,
to.
right? Yeah.
But it's worth the $5 you spend on it just to and it's not very hard to read.
No,
It's not
not at
long
all.
to read.
No.
I really think everybody should just go pick up a copy of it and then give it away as a gift, right? To somebody who that you think would benefit from it too. All right, so Brother Lawrence, so it's the presence of God, right? Practicing the presence of God. So, like, how would you, Father Stephen, define practicing the presence of God, right? Just like without turning it into a thing to do, right? Not a technique. It's just
No,
what is it? What is it to practice the presence of God?
one of the things that struck me about Teresa, in St. Teresa of Avila, St. Teresa of Jesus, the reformer of the order, one of the things that struck me, and it always sort of like, I always go back to this phrase that she uses, and she says, I began to have feelings of tenderness for him, meaning Christ, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what the key is. I think the key is engaging our affect in our relationship with the Lord to make it a more of a personal relationship. And so the practice of the presence of God is really turning to him throughout the day. I mean, when we're in love with someone, when we fall in love, we think of that person all the time. They're always on our mind. They're always on our heart. We're wondering how they are, what they're doing, all these things. They become, there is a tenderness in our heart. There's a devotion in our heart for that person. I think, and this is what we need to engage in our relationship with the Lord. Can we give ourselves permission to be infatuated, well, beyond infatuation, to be in love with the Lord? Can I give myself permission to cultivate a tenderness for him, right? And so to turn to him throughout the day. And again, I don't want to turn into a technique like, okay, so every day at noon, stop and take 10 minutes. Like, no, it is okay. If that helps, that's great. That's the discipline that you need. But I think the real key is, again, as Teresa talks about, cultivating tenderness. Can I give myself permission to be vulnerable to him, to desire him, right? To think of him, throughout the day. And if you just think of those times and situations or relationships where you have been in love and this person is so important to you, the question is, can I have the same kind of consideration for Christ? Can I continuously think of him? Can I continuously turn to him? Can I continuously speak to him? Can I continuously give myself permission to desire him, to desire to be with him, to be in His presence, to feel that comfort, that warmth, and that intimacy and vulnerability. So
Yeah, and it makes me think because Teresa talks about like that friendship with
mm-hmm.
God, right? Like you're saying that tenderness, just spending time together, and then so for Brother Lawrence, a lot of times, as in his writings, he's describing he's spending this time with God while he's working, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's something interior happening while he's doing his work. And so I don't know, help me understand maybe what that is,
Okay,
because it's
so
like
for example,
I can't go say like I'm going to go grocery shopping for God.
No.
And like it's my time with God or something, right? So like what's the interior thing that's actually going on?
And I think it goes
here?
back to the same thing. It goes back to this idea of there is this continual interior consideration of that person. No matter what you're doing, there is sort of underneath it, there is the thought of this person that you're in love with, this person that you care for, right? And so whether you're driving to work, whether you're at the Kroger, wherever it is that you find yourself, that person is not absent from you. That person is in your heart. That person is with you. You're carrying that person with you in your thoughts, right? It may not be at the top of your immediate awareness, but they're there, right? You
Mm-hmm.
are aware that this is someone that you are continuously considering. I think that's what the practice of the presence is. It's a continual awareness of that love that exists, right? That desire that is there, that desire for transcendence, that desire for intimacy, that desire for vulnerability, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
I think that in its essence, I think that's what it is. And you can't translate that into a technique or method because we're talking about a
Yeah.
relationship. You can't do that. I mean, I guess some people do, but that's the reason why things don't work then.
Yeah, something that I just had a thought and I lost it. I lost it. Well, I have another thought. Maybe it'll come back to me the first thing, but something that I think. Oh, it came back to me. Okay, yeah. So it's like that awareness. Imagine if and this is not quite as loving of a like relationship kind of loving thought, but it's like if you were in a room and there was not a lot of oxygen in the room, you would start being very aware of how much oxygen is or is not in the room, right?
Right.
And so it's just that now to kind of parallel that with God, when you realize that He's with you and you need Him more than you need oxygen, it kind of changes your reality.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So obviously in a much more loving, less dramatic and scary way than running out of oxygen. But anyway, the other thought that I had was I can see a risk here with Brother Lawrence, and this is maybe why he's popular with some Protestants, because it's like his prayer is in the kitchen with God, not at church. Like you see a lot of, I guess not like there's high Protestants and low Protestants. I don't know how else to say it, but it's like there's no great big church. There's no formal structure. There's no whatever. It's my personal relationship with Jesus, and that's all that matters, kind of thing, right? So maybe you can help us. Like, how do we avoid falling into that?
Oh yeah, and I think, and I'm glad you bring that up because it is sort of taking him out of the context of his religious life. I mean, as a religious person,
Yeah.
community life is essential, and the service of others is essential. And so it's not just me and Jesus, but it is my relationship with Jesus within the community of faith. So I think one of the the questions or the challenges is, how is your relationship with the Lord affecting the way that you relate to others? How is it affecting your understanding of what community is, right? So I think that's very important that that is understood, that his relationship with God, his relationship with Christ, his continual consideration of that loving presence within himself while he continues to do his work and his duties. I think the lesson is that my duties and my responsibilities don't define me. What defines me is my relationship with Christ, and that is what's most important. I think that is something to ask, right? Do I define myself by my job, by my socioeconomic bracket, by my political stance, by my ideological stance, by my being orthodox, whatever that means now in most people's heads, by being whatever it is, right? Is it about those things, or is it about my relationship to Jesus Christ and how this relationship with Jesus Christ opens me, or should open me, to the neighbor, whoever that happens to be? And again, this sort of bringing in the parable of the Good Samaritan. Sometimes the neighbor is somebody that is inconvenient to me and for me, but I'm still called to be loving to them. And so I think the way Lawrence did it was, again, all these people come to him because there is a very straightforward understanding of the call to service, right, to community, because of my relationship with Christ, that the consequence of my relationship with Christ is service. And I think a lot of people saw that. And it was a service not like the elder brother in the parable of the prodigal sons, but like the father of the sons, continuing loving and being forgiving and patient and understanding.
Yeah. I think there's something about Brother Lawrence. This is, I literally, like, I'll say it again. I think everyone just go buy the thing, because his writings, one of the times when he's talking about himself in the third person, he's writing to whomever, he says about himself that he regards not the greatness of the work, but the love with which it's performed, right? Because God loves him so much, so he's called to perform then whatever the act is, cleaning the pots and pans, buying the groceries, struggling with his injury, whatever it is, to do it with such a great love for God that it transforms the act that he's doing into something greater than the act that he's doing.
And this is very much John of the Cross, where there is no love, put in love and you will draw out love. I mean, that's pure John of the Cross. So his translation of that into his daily life, right? So I think that's marvelous that he's capable of doing that, right? And I think Saint Thérèse too brings in that idea of John and idea of Lawrence about it's not the act, it's the love with which I perform this act. That is most important.
Yeah. And I think there's something there for all, like, the busy moms and dads out there, right? Like, you got 4 kids, you got to make, 24 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, whatever, right? Like, you got to do all these things, and it's not that when you can find a way, like Brother Lawrence did, to transform it's not just the act, it's like you're saying, the love with which you perform the act.
Yeah.
And it's not even necessarily just directed toward the other person, like your kids and all the laundry you're washing for everybody and all that stuff. It's not just that, but it's you're directing it to God, right? If you can do that, I think it will be extremely fruitful in all of our lives. And it also makes me think the same thing when it comes to living like a sacramental and liturgical life, right? if I'm approaching all these things like just something I have to do versus doing them with such great love because of my relationship with God, it just changes everything.
Right.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, intention.
God bless you,
Yeah.
Brother Lawrence.
What is your intention, right? We're talking about intentionality.
Yeah. Okay, so what's something everyone can go practice this week? How would you? No, and it's funny. It's always funny because it's like we don't want to turn it into a technique, but we want to take what we learn. We want to internalize it. And we want to do something with it, not just go put it on the shelf.
No,
right?
I would say during your prayer time, during time before the Lord, whether it's before the Blessed Sacrament or whether it's in your prayer corner or whether when you're taking a contemplative, reflective walk, whatever, just examine your heart and ask yourself, is there tenderness in my heart for Christ or for God? Is there a do I allow myself to feel tenderness? And many times we don't, because we protect ourselves. We don't want to be hurt. We don't want to suffer because of that. But sometimes we close our heart off to all things, and sometimes that leads to stagnation and death. So is there tenderness, and what can I do to cultivate this tenderness in my prayer life? Just towards God, towards Christ, towards life.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. All right, Father. Thanks for this.
Thank you for bringing up bruh.
Bro, what's up, bro? Yeah, and if you catch or find out whenever the second edition is coming out or whatever you want to call it, let me know because
I will. I'll let you know.
I'm curious
when we hear something.
All right. Well, everybody, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Love you.
I hope you guys are blessed by Brother Lawrence as well. Father, I love you too.
Keep the faith or spread the faith.
Yep. Oh, and the thing that we always forget. Everybody out there, if you're enjoying us, please like, subscribe, share, leave comments or reviews and all the fun things. Okay. It's how we can grow.
Thank you.
We appreciate you.
God bless.
Bye.
Bye.